Our next speaker, as I indicated, that the topic is on education for economic reconstruction, recovery, approach, process, and content. The speaker holds a BCom degree, BCom Honours, Chartered Accountant, South Africa qualifications. He was conferred with honorary doctorates by universities of Fort Hare, Durban University of Technology, the University of Johannesburg, Walter Sisulu University, and UNISA. He is currently a PhD candidate at Aalborg University in Denmark. He is a former Chief Executive Officer of Telkom South Africa Limited and was responsible for its listing in the Johannesburg and New York stock exchanges. He was also the CEO of First Rand Banking Group from 2005 until he retired in September 2015. He serves as the chairman on various foundations and trusts and is a member of the Joint Advisory Board of Carnegie Mellon University, Africa, as well as the board member of the Independent Examination Board. He is also the co-founder and chairman of the South African National Education Collaboration Trust. He is the founder and chairman of ICSASA Student Financial Aid Program, which funds and supports students who come from poor and the missing middle backgrounds in South Africa. He is now a social entrepreneur who founded Future Nations Schools in South Africa. He also founded Sifiso Learning Group, which is involved in the EdTech, academic and non-academic publishing and real estate. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Sizwe Nxasana on stage.
Thanks very much, Dr. Mahabo Mahaule. Minister of Basic Education, Mayor NG Muteha, Deputy Minister, Dr. Mahabo Mahaule. I'm not using Regina today. The MECs of education who are here, the DG, Mr. Matanze Mamueli, the HODs, the leadership of the teacher unions, the ambassadors and other representatives of countries who are friends, parent bodies, professional organizations, stakeholders, all dignitaries here and all protocol observed. I'm going to start off, I guess, by just reflecting on the successes that we've had in South Africa. In the past 30 years, and the President talked about this, we've seen the mandatory inclusion of mathematics for learners from grade R to 9, with an option between mathematics and maths literacy. In grade 10 to 12, we've seen initiatives like the overhaul of the teacher qualification framework, which aims to boost the quality and pedagogical knowledge of our universities. We've seen programs such as the National Food Nutrition Program, the Funza Lushaka Bursary Scheme, and the Strategic National Development Plan of 2012 have actually allowed us to do a lot of things. You know, the creation of the NECT itself would not have been possible had it not been for the NDP. And as President Ramaphosa said earlier, the DBE now feeds about 10 million children. I think that really deserves a big round of applause. Additionally, we've witnessed the shift of early childhood development from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Basic Education, which is a very progressive step. We've celebrated and applauded the introduction of the 3-stream curriculum and the new subjects that have been introduced in the curriculum, such as coding and robotics, technical mathematics, and others. But we all have to agree that the journey is far from complete. And to truly propel our system towards education for economic reconstruction and recovery, we have to confront the structural and systemic issues that are perpetuating inequality and the enduring apartheid legacies. South Africa has some of the most important policies which were very well conceived and have come, but in certain cases have come short, especially where it comes to unintended consequences that we continue to see in our system. The splitting of the education department into the two departments, the basic education department and DHET, was a very well-conceived strategy. But I think 30 years down the line, it is time for us to reflect and say what works and what does not work. I've spoken before about initial teacher education and the gaps. I was trained as a teacher during COVID. And the gaps that exist between the supply side of teachers and the demand side of teachers. Because very often you see a number of cases where the other department that supplies teachers is not keeping up with the reforms that were talked about by the president, by the minister, and by some of the other presenters who are going to be presenting here today. We continue to see this shortage of teachers in certain areas, especially in specialist areas, or even the shortages that are experienced by rural schools or township schools. And those are some of the things that we need to address. And moreover, the slow change in the classroom dynamics towards a more teacher-friendly and a more student-centered approach to learning and teaching reveals some broader issues that we have to tackle as a country. And studies have shown that continued reliance on traditional teacher-centered methods, particularly in rural areas and townships, continues to disadvantage our youth and to broaden the existing gaps that we have in the education system. And I just want to touch on the issue of language. And it's been spoken about very eloquently by our President earlier during his presentation, as well as our Minister. We all know that language plays a crucial role in content delivery, serving as a means of expressing understanding, constructing meaning, and developing critical competencies and skills. As we know, in South Africa, the language of instruction changes from mother tongue to English from grade 4 onwards, when prescribed language of learning and teaching is mainly English. Yes, Afrikaans is that too, but English still remains the main language of learning and teaching. And learners studying, breakthrough subjects such as mathematics and sciences in a language which is different from their mother tongue face multiple challenges. They must not only have to master the new language in which the subject is taught, but also grapple with the intricacies of mathematical and science terminology and scientific concepts. And this situation is further complicated by the fact that English proficiency of many of our teachers, I'm not proficient in English. And Minister said, there are village people here. And I was just thinking about it earlier to say, I come from Economic in KZN. I think people in Soweto that you grew with will disagree with you, Minister, that they are village people. But nevertheless, if you look at the studies around the language issues, we have to address this issue. The President talked about courage and commitment. Because research shows that there are numerous instances where schools, despite neither being teachers or the learners being native English speakers in the foundation phase now, will opt for English as a home language. And this choice presents a number of challenges how teachers facilitate learning in those schools. Furthermore, in 2013 already, there was a proposal for the incremental introduction of African languages into South African schools in progressing, the advancement of indigenous languages. But I think that progress, the incremental progress, is just way too slow. We have to be deliberate and be more forceful in promoting indigenous languages. And this will require that we don't just talk about the challenges in language. We have to invest serious money and other resources and establish new institutions as well as supporting existing institutions. The PENS Lab can't just be the one institution that is driving this, because we cannot continue with the colonial past, which said our indigenous languages have no epistemic or academic value. We cannot continue with this colonial past, which was violent on our languages, especially the marginalized languages such as Tshivenda, isiNdebele, Sepedi, Setswana. I have grandchildren whose father is Venda speaking. I cannot get any books to read to my grandchildren in Tshivenda. And it's really, really sad. And then we wonder why our children cannot read for meaning. And I just want to turn on and talk about the mathematics challenge that we face as a country. As I mentioned at the start of the discussion, the country has implemented many reforms which are really, really progressive, that are seeking to address the issue of equity and quality, including equity and quality in mathematics since 1994. But when you look at where we are now, yes, the introduction of mathematics from grade R to grade 9 and its comparison. You know, I was listening to the Prime Minister of Britain the other day, who was talking about, you know, Britain at less than 70% of their children who are doing mathematics in Britain. And we've done that. All of our children do mathematics at least up to grade 9, and that needs to be celebrated. And obviously, the challenge happens in the FET phase. We look at the challenge in the FET phase where our children have to choose between maths literacy and mathematics. You suddenly see a significant increase in the number of our learners who are choosing mathematics literacy. And this is an issue that we have to confront, because if less than 40% of our children are meant to be the ones who are regarded as smart, essentially we're saying more than 60% of our children who, for a number of reasons, including being encouraged by teachers and sometimes parents to choose mathematics literacy, we're not saying those children are not smart. And as we know, intelligence is equally distributed in the world. It doesn't matter whether you're black or white or Asian, intelligence is equally distributed in the world. Because mathematics ability is frequently misconstrued as a measure of overall intelligence, where learners who are considered to be mathematically gifted are considered as intelligent, and the rest are considered to be remedial, slow, and need support, which cannot be true. So the dichotomy not only marginalizes those who are not excelling in mathematics, but also restricts access to enriching learning opportunities, prestigious academic paths, and high-value careers. And this categorization, by the way, which is entrenched in our societal construct, is also then often used for gender, race and class, as well as other hierarchies where people are excluded because of that. And the legacy of restricted access to mathematics, coupled with the requirements for mathematics proficiency in many employment sectors. I mean, even our TVET colleges, if you are not doing, sort of the NCVs that are in humanities, you cannot even get into some of the native programs that require mathematics. So this challenge of addressing mathematics is something that we have to urgently do something about. I don't think when the policy way back in 1998, I was corrected by Professor Aaron Rensberg here, Because when you Google it, it says math literacy was introduced in 2006, but actually it was way back in 1998. The whole idea was to make sure, because we came from, I did higher grade maths, others did standard grade maths, and in fact I was looking at the history of this. Maths was designed to exclude a lot of our people, black people particularly, for meaningful participation. I was looking at a statement by Verwoerd in 1953, who was saying there's no need to teach natives mathematics, because what are we going to do with it? We're going to do nothing with it. So the mathematics issue is a very, very political issue that we have to do something about. So if you look at this picture, and you look at the really good results that the minister announced earlier this year, those who are passing mathematics at 60% plus, and I'm deliberately using 60% because all of the programs in higher education institutions, whether you want to become an actuary, an engineer, a doctor, a pharmacist, a data scientist, you name it, all of those programs, you cannot get in without 60%. So only 6% of our learners who wrote matric in 2023 actually got 60% and plus. And that cannot be. And I'm talking about 16% of the total number. So 16% of the total number got 60% plus. And out of that, when you then look at the quintiles, what happened in the quintile 1, 2, and 3, in other words, the no-fee paying schools that cater for Africans, almost 100% Africans, you suddenly see that, yes, there's improvement, which is green shoots, which is very positive, but there's a lot more that we need to do to address this issue. It is especially acute when you look at what is happening, just taking the data that came from, RESAP, which is the research unit of Stellenbosch University, where they use the data collected from SA SAMS. You see that at grade 10, the number of learners who are taking mathematics is actually declining. So that means there are more of our learners who are taking maths literacy as we speak, and we've got to do something about that. And then at 30%, you can see quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools that there's a very large number of our young people who are not even getting 30% in maths, maths lit, and physical sciences. So it's a major issue that as a country we have to address, because what it means is that you have the few, the 6%, that essentially become creators. Those who are not getting 60% but are passing mathematics well become the operators and the consumers, and the rest, which is the majority, essentially become the statistics of the unemployed. So we have to do something about this. So as I conclude, I want to talk a little bit about the issue of early childhood education, care, and support. The recent function shift of ECD from DSD to DBE was a very, very progressive step, because it paved the way for an investment in our children that will set them up for success. And the development of early childhood care and education curriculum is gaining speed, which must be celebrated. And the introduction by the DBE of new approaches to learning and teaching, including Learn Through Play. I'm pleased to see Kerry Carson from Lego Foundation here, because Lego Foundation funded the sensors as well as the Thrive by 5, and they continue to play a very important role in this area. Means that we have a chance as a country to do something that will improve a lot of our children. But again, we have to be careful. We have to be careful because even as we speak, there are uncertainties. There are a lot of, especially women, who are out there who play a very important role in early childhood education, who are not sure what's going to happen. A lot of them may have qualifications that are maybe just up to NQF level 4. But they play a very important role because they allow a lot of parents in the country to go to work and participate in the economy. So I don't think we're going to be able to address what the qualification framework, what the Mr. Tech for ECD says in just the next 6 years. I think we'll have to be extremely careful to make sure that, one, we can, as the President said in his address, create more opportunities for employment in the ECD sector. I think we have a wonderful opportunities, just taking lessons from the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative, which saw teaching advisors, or teacher assistants, and teacher admin assistants, and so on, to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs in early childhood development. But how we think about the professionalization of early childhood development is going to be particularly important. So there is an opportunity for us to really fundamentally shift and bring a lot more women into the economy, particularly using ECD as a case. And especially because we already have partners there. We have NGOs, we have the private sector, we have parents who are paying, fees in that environment. And as a country, we'll be making a huge mistake if we lost all of that support which sits in that environment. As part of my conclusion, I just want to talk a little bit about technology. The President talked about how we as a country need to use technology to democratize education. I was a CEO of Telkom. I left Telkom exactly 20 years ago. I started on the 1st of April, so 20 years ago. Already 20 years ago, we were talking about universal access to the internet and the cost of data. 20 years on, it has hardly happened. So, talking about courage, it is really going to be important. It is urgent, it is overdue that our learners need to have access not just to the internet, they need to have access to free data. There's enough money in this country to actually do that. We just need to look at the amounts of money. Honestly, you just need to look at the amount of money. I mean, I'm an Orlando Pirates supporter. And sorry to the Chiefs fans. But you just need to look at the amount of money that is spent on sponsorship, which is not even sometimes adding value. I've been on the other side. And a lot of that money can be used to provide internet access. So, as part of South Africa Connect, all the electronic network service providers have already got lists of schools and public spaces that they're supposed to connect. We cannot continue as a country, depending on the goodness of the hearts of the electronic communication network service providers, to provide internet access, reduce data prices. As a country, when we talk about commitment, courage, the determination to close the inequalities in the country, it is really absolutely urgent that we address, because otherwise introducing subjects such as coding and robotics and so on will only benefit those who are already privileged. And rural schools, if you go to places like the Northern Cape as an example, that are far distances, you're going to find that we're leaving millions of our children behind. So I just want to reiterate that yes, we've made many strides since 1994 in education, but we have a challenge that is ahead of us. And that challenge requires courage, continued effort, innovation, and commitment from all of us. And our goal of equity, equality, and inclusivity in education requires that we address all these fundamental structural and systemic challenges that we face. Thank you. Thank you very much for listening.